Hi, everybody, and welcome to our second bonus call for our fifth cohort of Ignite. If you have not yet heard our first bonus call with Nechama Shtal, that is definitely something you should hear. And what I said in the beginning of that call is the same thing I'm going to say in the beginning of this call, that these bonus calls for Ignite are something new. It's something I've never done before. And this year, in our fifth cohort of Ignite, I realized that this was something that I wanted to offer because Ignite turned out to be something so much bigger than I ever intended for it to be. In the beginning, when I launched Ignite as a course, it was very small, very intimate. It was just 15 women around my own dining room table, and it was run more workshop style. We met Thursday afternoons. There was no Q&A. It was just us schmoozing, having these open conversations around a certain theme of the week. And yes, there was a playbook, but Ignite in its first cohort looked nothing like it does today. And what started happening each each successive year that we ran Ignite, not only did the course become more crystallized in how I wanted to teach it, the lectures became more solidified in terms of the content. What really exploded open for me and for all of us was the Q&As. Like I said, it was not available in the first year. And then in the second year, we had Q&A. And then in the third year, there was more Q&A and then more Q&A. And we're here in our fifth year. And the course ended 2 weeks ago, and we still have a bunch of Q&As ahead of us because I want to answer all of your questions. And the reason why I'm offering so much of my extra time and effort and energy and attention to the Q&As and to what you bring to the table is because that's what Ignite really is. It is about you. It is about your needs, about your questions, and about the things we as women and the men who are on this call really want to know more about. And I could have never dreamed that was going to happen when I started Ignite. When I started Ignite, it was about my knowledge. It was about what I got when I went to school and wanted to bring out for women what I thought was missing. But in 5 years of teaching Ignite, you've told me what you think is missing. And that's why we had Nechama come on 2 weeks ago and talk about the Haras Mishpacha and why there's such a strong need for women, adult women, to relearn these halachos and take, I don't even want to call them refresher courses because they're so much more than refreshers. It's about learning it brand new with new eyes a couple of years into our marriages. And the other big hot topic that people keep wanting to hear more about is FAM, the fertility awareness method. And I am so excited that today we get to talk to Pessy Schwartz, Pessy with a Y, who I keep spelling her name I-E. I totally apologize because Pessy is saved in my contacts with a Y, and I should know better because I hate when people misspell my name. So Pessy with a Y, and it's important Pessy with a Y because if you're going to want to look her up, you need to know how to spell her name. Pessy of Reclaim Womanhood. You can find her on Instagram. You could now find her on her own website. She'll tell you all about it. And before I bring Pessy onto the screen, let me tell you a little bit about why Pessy gets to be here, what my background is with Pessy, how we know each other. So nepotism. Pessy is my cousin. She is my cousin, and that is why she gets to be on this call. Actually, Pessy and I did not really grow up knowing each other. We are cousins, not first cousins. I think we're in fact second cousins. Our mothers are first cousins, and we really had nothing to do with each other growing up except, I think we saw each other's faces like twice. And then Pessy reached out to me a while back and said, "Hi, I just want to introduce myself to you. I'm your cousin," and then my heart always goes into like, oh, I have lots of cousins. Like, what does that mean? And Pessy tells me, "I am fascinated by your work. I want to hear more about it because this has always been my dream. I want to go into this field." And I started a conversation with Pessy and I said, wait, hold on. What is this field? Because this field is a very, very big field. Tell me who you are. Tell me your vision. Tell me your dream. And that started a succession of back and forth voice notes, Pessy and I going for days and months, me listening to her dream and then kind of figuring this out together, like, who is she and what does she want? And for me to bring her on this call, like, I feel like I'm stepping so much nachas because I feel like I was there in the beginning when we were like figuring this out, and nobody could have dreamed that this is where we were going to be such a short time later. So I'm very, very excited to bring Pessy on. One more thing I will say before I do bring her on is that Pessy is also a Kala teacher. As far as I know, Pessy is not actually actively teaching Kalas, but that was something that I loved. Just that she went to Kala teacher training, actually the same one that I went to. You were in the next cohort after me. What I loved about it is that it really underscored for me a lot of what I believe, that when we go into this work of femininity, sexuality, there's something about Taharas Mishpacha, there's something about the laws that we're already keeping that really calls to us to like relearn it, to look at it through another lens. I can't wait to ask Pessy more about her experience with that. And last thing I promise, and then I bring her on. There are a lot of fertility awareness educators out there, and you know that I recommend many of them. For me, what speaks very loudly when I bring someone onto a call like this is not just their level of skill, it's their level of personal integration with this work, not just in how they practice it, but how they show up for it. And this is one of the first conversations that I had with Pessy when she said that she wanted to go into this work. I said, you know that this is very sensitive work, right? It's not just that you get to like talk to women about their fertility. Like there's a lot there, right? When you talk to women about their cycles, you end up talking to them about their marriages. You end up talking to them about their hopes and their dreams. And Pessy was like, I know. And she really, really, really does. So I'm going to bring Pessy. I'm going to spotlight her because I finally figured out how to do this. And I'm going to spotlight her. We're going to bring her on. We are going to allow her to unmute and actually introduce herself to us because she can do that better than I can. Hi, Pessy. Welcome.
Hi.
Tell us
Yeah.
everything about you.
Okay, where do I start? You started in a very good place. Yeah, I knew of you. I knew you as a cousin, as a relative. I did not know the incredible work that you're doing. I mean, I think the extent that I knew is that you wrote a book, which in itself is awesome. So I knew like you're incredible in your own way, but like I didn't know the extent and everything you share. Um, how I found you first was actually through Ignite. So Ignite impacted my life way before I actually joined. A friend of mine sent me your intro call that you do. And she's like, Pessy, you're gonna love this. This is so your style. Because I'm like talking to all my friends about this knowledge that I have. Because like I don't know who else to share it with. This is before like I was doing anything with it, and like their ears are coming off already from like everything I'm passionate about. And she's like, you're gonna love this. And I started listening. I know this person. I know Fally Klein. Like, and she had no idea. But
I don't think I
um,
knew that. Did I know that you had listened to the intro call? Is that how you got to me? I did not know that. Or
yeah,
maybe I just forgot.
yeah, okay, that's what led me to reach out to you. Yeah. I actually
That's
asked my
really
mother for your
funny.
number and then I got it.
That is so funny.
hmm
I'm trying to remember. I remember where I was standing when you had first reached out to me. I was standing in my kitchen and I remember pacing, like, back and forth in front of my oven. I was
Nine
pacing.
minute voice note,
Oh
people.
my gosh, was it 9 minutes? That's crazy. I'm
I was
embarrassed.
like,
I'm
who sends
embarrassed.
9 minute voice notes? Today I send 10-minute voice.
I know it wasn't the first, it won't be the last. Yeah, you can't catch me on the phone for an actual conversation, but 9 minute voice note is a thing. It's a total thing, especially because you can listen on double speed these days. All right, so Betsy, let's talk about you. I mean, cousins aside, growing up as kids, you know, we have these images of each other as like kids, the cousins, we know each other's families. I mean, for those of you who want to know how we're related, our grandmothers are twin sisters, just so that you know. We
I'm like
come from
worlds
twins.
apart.
I know. No, we come from twins. That's how related we are. But it's crazy like when you think of all of us as little cousins growing up together and then becoming these mature adults who actually have a vision, who have a plan. Like could we ever have imagined as little girls that this is where we would have ended up as adults,
Never.
right? Never. I mean, I went
Like
to,
in third grade when you write, what will you do when you grow up? Like, no.
so what did you think you were gonna do in third
Um,
grade when they asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I don't know. I mean, everyone was going to be a teacher. So like that was that was what you learned in school, that you're going to grow up to be a teacher. I actually
And
did get my certification. I was doing P3 for a long. I still do. I still have my two cases that I'm holding on to because like for security. And after this year, I'm going to let them go. I'm finishing the school year because this is like really Baruch Hashem taking off, and we're at that point. But yeah, that's what I was doing. I was like done. I finished my master's at I think I was like 23, 24. I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm set for life. Like, I don't have to do any more learning. I don't have to do any more training. Like, if I would have just known what's coming. So yeah, like for like I was finally done. I was finally like settled, like marriage, having kids, getting my schooling done. I was finally settled,
You checked off all of those boxes.
right?
You became a P3, and that was really what you thought you were gonna do for
Yeah, I mean,
eternity.
it wasn't my passion. It was just like, okay, yeah, I enjoyed it, but like it wasn't like something that lit me up. It was just like a job, like, yeah, you got to do something.
That makes me so
Eventually,
sad when you
I
say that that
know.
wasn't your passion,
Hmm.
right? Because I think so many of us, it happened for so many of us when we were in high school or whatever it was, and we had to choose our career. And there is this like pressure because you got to go to college and you got to start working towards your degree, but you're a kid. You don't know
No
anything.
idea.
And also you're watching adults a little older than you and they're not passionate either. We as kids when we watched our parents in the working world, passion was not a part of any of this.
No.
So what changed for you and when and how and why? When did passion come into the picture?
So something I'll correct what you were saying before that I was dreaming of doing this for my whole life. Like, no, absolutely not. This was something that happened like very spontaneously, very like something that came into my life by accident. Like literally Hashem like just put it in my lap out of nowhere. Um, and then like after I had it in my life for a while, I would say like for a year or two, like I was like really like ozgekach, like really like living this life like fully. And in my mind, like I started coming up with like, oh, I really would love to share this with more people. Like everyone should know that this is amazing. This changed my life in so many ways. But like 10 years down the line, like whatever, like eventually, like I'll start sharing it. But like I have this gift for myself, like I'm cherishing it, and like whatever. Why do I have to do anything now?
One second. And
Um,
when you say these gifts, I'm assuming you're speaking of the fertility awareness method.
Yeah, but really, like that's just one angle of it. I'm talking about more in general menstrual cycle awareness, connecting to my cycle, and just like really letting those like there are so many gifts there. And fertility awareness was for me is really just a way of being able to be on my own cycle while not being on birth control or not being able to track my cycle and have my own cycle and all the gifts that it could give me for
So,
me.
so rewind. Hold on.
Yeah.
Menstrual cycle awareness. What does that mean? And you're saying this with like a straight face. You're not blushing. You're just like, yeah, this is everyday conversation. Let's talk about our menstrual cycle awareness. What is that? Is this something that everybody should know about? Is this common knowledge? I mean, how do you say this without blushing? Talk to me. Talk
It's
to us.
yeah, at the beginning I blushed a lot. I by now it's just like, yeah, it is kind of something like I just think everyone who has a cycle or who is like in their cycling years should know about this because it's our body. Why shouldn't we know about our body? We're not taught about half of this. And we're taught, like for many of us, if we're lucky, we're taught, okay, you're gonna menstruate, you're gonna have here are pads, like this is what your cycle is gonna be, and then whatever, we just don't talk about it. And then we know, okay, it has something to do with fertility. It's something like, okay, if we have a healthy cycle, we know we can get pregnant. So it's like a reassurance in a sense, but it's not like something bigger that we actually connect to, something that has so much more wisdom to offer in our life. Like that part is totally like not.
So I'm playing the devil's advocate, right? Because
Mhm.
I know you and I know a lot about what you do, but when you say like no one really talks about it, what is it? Like I from my understanding of most of the world, they're hearing you speak right now and they're like, what is there to talk about? It's just a period. I mean, we've all gone through this. 12, we were 14, some of us when we were 9, and we know how to deal with it. We've been doing this once a month for a long time now. What is she talking about? What else is there to know?
So it's not just a period, that's first of all. And also, like you said, okay, we know how to deal with it. Like it's just something that we just put up with. And like that whole factor of, okay, this big part of our life, we get a period once a month. And also there are other parts of the cycle that we're going to talk about that have so much more to do with who we are as women and how we move through life. But just that dealing with it aspect is like, this is not something like ideal. This is just something we have to put up with. This is like a curse, that whole language. That's how I grew up with it. That was my relationship with it. This is something shameful. This is something we don't talk about. It's something like we rather don't want to have, but okay, we put up with it because like, okay, we want to have children or we want to have this, the good parts that it gives us, but not that the whole thing is something positive. Like that was never
The
the
curse of Chava.
right. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we did so much about like I did so much digging into that because I could not just live with that fact that it's just a curse and this is bad and this is just something that yeah, that we just put up with. It didn't make sense to me anymore. I
So
think I think the turning point for me was, okay, so we start doing this like healing work. Like I read at some point most of us just land in therapy or something, or we just start like,
we hope.
figuring
We
out
hope.
figuring out what this life is about, or what, how to just manage different things. And I started doing just a lot of like loving myself more, and coming back to who I am. And it just dawned on me once, like, why is there this part of me that is a part of me, right? If Hashem created this part of me, why is it something that's shameful? Like, it didn't make sense to me anymore that Hashem created a part of my body that I need to be ashamed of. Like, that part didn't make sense. Like, yeah, sacred, yes, something that you keep private, yes, but not something that you need to be ashamed of. And the shame was really the biggest factor for me, because it was really very perpetuated in how I grew up and where I was, my community surrounding me, or like even just the surrounding culture. Like, that's how many of us are, were brought up to look at it. So that, I think, was like a turning point. Like, there has to be a different way to look at it. And then I also had my own like just struggle that kept coming up with, specifically for me, it was PMS. Like, every time, like literally a week before my period was due to arrive, I would just have like crazy mood swings, and I would just not feel like myself. I would feel like the world was crashing, like, what's wrong with me? And then a week later, really, I fell for that again. Like, that was just the repeating story, until I was like, okay, there is a pattern here. There's something in it for me. I also, like, that's just the kind of person I am. Like, I like to find meaning in life. It's not just like something is just a mistake. So I guess that's something that I do have from way back when, that kind of led me into this.
Yeah, I
Um,
was going to ask you, like, there are
mm,
so many women who have PMS, right? And a week later, they say the same thing. Oh, I fell for that again. But a lot of women just accept that or take that for granted, like this is what a period is. What made you say, no, there must be something more here? This isn't
right.
just, because if anybody goes online and you just type in PMS, they'll just assure you that this is normal and basically 1 week out of every month is going to stink. And you are like, no, there's something off here. What gave you the courage and the confidence to keep looking?
Yeah, I wish I had like a clear answer, like this is what made it for me. It's really like it just happened at some point. This was going on for months and months and cycles and years, and just like, and then at some point I was like, enough, like, this is not something I want to deal with anymore. I think it was also this idea of like, I felt victimized by my hormones. Like, I don't know what will happen next, and my hormones just are doing a number over me all the time. And I'm like, I don't want to be a victim to my hormones anymore. Like, I want to know what's actually going on. So there was two pieces to that. There was the empowerment of just knowing what's going on, like, biologically, but also really just the mindset of shifting how I view this whole thing. So that's kind of where, and then from just 1 second to next, literally, like, I think it just, one thing led to another. I just like, you're saying Google PMS, so I didn't use Google. I used a meditation app. So maybe
Wait,
there's little.
what? You didn't use Google? You
For
mean
this
there are other
specific
places we go and not Google?
for this specifically, that I wanted to shift my mindset over around my period, around my cycle, I didn't use Google. I used the meditation app, because I figured, there were some nice concepts on this meditation app. They might have something that
I
I
feel
want
like
to.
that was the secret. You didn't go down the Google rabbit hole. You avoided that whole trap, and that is why you are light years ahead of everybody else. I hear now.
That's the
Okay.
secret. Yeah, go to a meditation app. Google your stuff there.
What were you hoping to do with the meditation app? A
I was
meditation app
gonna
specifically
listen to a
designed.
meditation that was gonna give me a positive mindset on the period, on
Interesting.
menstruation. Yeah.
So you were
But
specifically looking for something that was for period related meditations.
yeah, I literally put menstruation in the search tab, and I got a beautiful meditation on the positive mindset of being on a period. Never heard of that before. But this is a
Wow.
time of sacred rest. And this is when, you like come back to yourself, and use, like, it was just so many beautiful concepts.
So, I mean, I'm kind of like blown away just trying to imagine that. That must have been like mind blowing
And
to
then
have
that
that
meditation.
experience.
So yeah, and then think of the building blocks. That meditation led me, recommended a book at the end. So I obviously bought that book. It's called Wild Power.
I
Um,
was just going to ask you if it was
yeah,
Wild Power. That's
that
so
was my
funny.
first book, and that book just blew my mind. Like, everything
I'm
about,
actually going to link it in
yeah,
the notes
it's a
beneath because
must read. Yeah.
yeah. So what happened after Wild Power? I think you actually ended up going to school with them, right?
No, I didn't do that. Their training, no.
But you had been thinking about it, right? Because we had spoken about them.
Um, yeah, but it wasn't, maybe, I don't know. It wasn't what I needed at that point.
So tell me
We
more.
discussed
So
the
we
different
discussed
things.
this. I
Yeah.
remember because I
Yeah.
remember you discussing
So
that
first
you
of all,
had
this
read
is
that
like
book.
years, this is like a year or two before that, before we even
Right.
met, like,
Right.
before we even had this conversation. So I just like really started integrating it myself. I was actually on the pill when I was reading this book, Wild Power. So yeah, like, even the PMS sometimes that I was having was just exacerbated on the pill. Like, it wasn't maybe real. Like, if you're talking about being on your real cycle, like, I don't really like getting it. I mean, yeah, we talk about it, but like, I think it's really semantics. Like, your hormones are still there trying to push through, and maybe it's being suppressed, but my PMS symptoms were my hormones trying to push through and just being really frustrated even more so. Um, and it was always like, I was looping on the pill because that's what you do if you're on the pill, like take advantage of
And
that.
if you can, right, you do it.
Right. So, and what I
For those
realized,
of us who are not familiar, looping is going back to back on the pill without getting a period each month.
yeah. And what I realized was that I couldn't just do it indefinitely. I started spotting like around, let's say 53 days, like around like somewhere in there in that range. And that's when I was having these PMS symptoms, like a few days before that. So then I saw spotting 3 days after, and it was really my body's sign to just let go. And that's when I, took my week break and whatever. So I started like I was kind of in that rhythm, if you want to call that a rhythm, where my body did give me signs of, even if I was on the pill, my body gave me signs of when it's time to release, and I was having crazy PMS mood swings, and it was just like really intense. So then I was reading this book, Wild Power, and I wasn't ready to go off the pill yet. For everyone who's like in that stage, I can completely validate you. Like I was really not wanting to be on the pill, but like I was terrified to go off the pill. So yeah, it just really took a while, and I was starting to implement something about cycle awareness. So let's just differentiate two terms. There's cycle awareness and there's fertility awareness. Cycle awareness is being aware of the rhythm of our cycle. So we go through different seasons. I think you spoke about it in one of the modules about our different seasons in our cycle, right? The inner winter, inner spring, summer.
Tell us a little bit about it here, though, because this call is going to be going out to more than just the women of Ignite. So if you
Yeah.
can condense this into like, a 2-second recap. So for people who have never heard of this idea before, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, so we move in a rhythm. So that's what I meant when our cycle is so much more than just our period. Our period is one dot on the circle. We literally, women are a circle, and male is a line, and masculine is a line, linear,
It's
feminine
late
is
at
a
night.
circle. Yeah. Feminine is a circle or cyclical. And this idea was actually validated for me. So like I said, it was really important for me to find sources in our own like Torah sources and just like really bring it back. Because like the first book that I read was Wildfire. That was a secular book, really beautiful, very spiritual, but it was really important for me to bring it back to my own, traditions. And this was something that clicked for me once when I was reading I know to link this book as well, Kabbalistic Writings on the Nature of the Masculine and Feminine. So that was also a really beautiful read, and
Do
something
you know
she
who
was
wrote
writing.
it?
Sara Yehudit Schneider. So something that she wrote about Miriam Hanaviah and the circle dance, about just like she was kept on saying about circles and Miriam's circle dance, the drums were in circles, and the woman goes in a circle and like all these things, but she just wasn't saying the menstrual cycle. Like I was like so annoyed at her. Just say it's the menstrual cycle. Like what about a woman makes her a circle as opposed to a line? Because we move in a cyclical rhythm of a cycle, right? The men also have hormones, by the way. They move like the sun. They move in a daily rhythm of 24 hours. And women move like the moon. So our hormonal rhythm is more in a month, and more like a 28, 29-day kind of cycle. So yeah, like, and when she wrote there that Maisha was saying in future tense, right? As Yasher, he will sing when he will be able to grasp these big truths. And Miriam and the women were singing in present tense because they were embodying it. It wasn't something that the mind can comprehend. It was something that in the circle dance, in their cyclical awareness, they were embodying this amazing truth that they were witnessing in this miracle. And it just really resonated so strongly because so much of this is, and also this is something that you really helped me so much with, is the body part of it, the embodiment of it, of really like, this is not about intellectual. I mean, there's parts to it is, but it's really just an embodied experience and just really letting ourselves be in that. So that kind of validated for me that the cycle awareness is a Jewish concept. First of all, we have Schneider, we have all this in our tradition as well. But yeah, so where did we get into the circle and the line? Now I'm totally confused.
No, we were just talking about
Menstrual cycle
the
awareness and the
menstrual
seasons.
cycle and the
Yeah.
seasons and the cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we move in this rhythm of just like we have the seasons of the year, we move through in our own cycle, we have these seasons as well.
And you
Where
were saying about cycle awareness versus fertility
yeah, so
awareness.
that's more like a cycle awareness concept. And this can be done. The reason I brought this up now is because cycle awareness can actually be done even when you're on the pill, even when you're post-menopause. You can connect to the moon. It's the same concept of like being
Even
in,
when you're pregnant, right?
right,
And
exactly.
even when you're a teenager.
When you have then you can have your own cycle as well
What do you mean?
when you're a teenager. I'm saying it
Right,
can
but
be
I'm
either
saying,
your own cycle, or it can be a pill cycle, or it can be a moon cycle. Like the
right.
concept of connecting to a cycle is a deeply feminine embodied kind of practice.
That goes beyond fertility. It's way
Yeah,
before
yeah,
fertility. It's something
yeah.
that every woman should
Every woman
be
can have access
practicing
to,
or
yeah,
yeah.
100%. So I was doing that while I was still on the pill. So it's not about what's going on in,
I think that's fascinating, though. Hold up a
yeah.
second, that you were doing cycle awareness while you were still on the pill. And the reason why I'm pausing you here is
Mhm.
because right now there's this massive trend, okay, of people being like, let's yank out our IUDs and let's get rid of the pill. And I think that people are confusing the fertility awareness method with cycle awareness, not recognizing that they are two distinct things.
They can
One
work very
does,
well together, but
yeah,
they're two different things. Yeah.
but people are not necessarily recognizing it. And I feel like there is a trend. Women are, yes, becoming more embodied. They want to, let's say, go the more holistic route.
Mhm.
But I mentioned this to you last week, a couple of days ago, that I got a call from my midwife, who is also your midwife, right? She
I'm
knows us
midwife.
both.
Yeah.
And she's like, Fally, can you tell people to stop yanking out their IUDs? She says, do you know how many times I have women come to me being like, I'm ready to pull out my IUD. And she tells them, she says, oh, that's great. You're ready to have another baby? And they're like, no. And she's like, well, then what's your backup plan? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know. I think I'll just figure it out. And she says, well, you can't just go off birth control before you have it figured out. Like otherwise, I will see you here in a couple of months. She's like, it's good business for me. It just means more babies for me. And I ended up having this whole conversation with her and telling her, you're right. A lot of women don't know that the fertility awareness method and women wanting to go holistic and natural, and it's great and it's important, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's bring it back to, yes, the cycle awareness. And you can it's first off this why the cycle awareness is important, why it's so valid, why it's so meaningful, and the fact that you can do this while you're on birth control, because a woman is always connected to her cyclical nature even when she's on the pill, right? And there's no rush. I know people get very excited when we talk about these subjects, right? And they're like, yes, I think it's a great idea to go off the pill. And we're like, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. If you are not ready to get pregnant tomorrow, do not get off the pill. Do not yank out your IUDs. There's a process. There's a process. There's a process, and it starts with cycle awareness. So talk more.
Yeah.
Just tell us the richness and the beauty, and if it's not a birth control thing, if
Right.
you're planning to stay on the pill for a while or the IUD, tell me the point of cycle awareness.
Yeah, so I actually went through this process. It took months for me to actually, from when I first was reading this book and implementing it in my life to actually going off the pill. It was a really long process for me to feel ready for that. But I knew, like, as I was going through each cycle and like really connecting to myself, I was like, oh, I want to experience my actual cycle. Like, there was that desire coming up for me. But still, like, it had to be like a rational decision. It's not something that can just be done over the blink of an eye for sure. Also, something that I want to say about copper IUD, if it's, I mean, we could go into this more when we when we talk about fertility awareness, but if it's a copper IUD, you can actually track your cycle while you're for fertility awareness also while you're still on the copper IUD, because it's not affecting your hormones in that way that a pill or a hormonal IUD might be. So
Right, you would still be ovulating
yeah,
on the
we could
copper
talk about
IUD.
that. Yeah, it's actually a really good way to practice and get into the rhythm of it before you feel ready to, move on to the next step.
But I like what you said, that you practiced this for a long time
Yeah.
before you felt ready to go off the pill. So this was never about going off the pill.
No.
This was never about birth control. This was really just about you reconnecting to your body, to your femininity, to your health, to your menstrual health. And I think people are not like, I think this is a very new concept for people, because a lot of the fertility awareness is what's coming to the surface. And today, in a very holistic world where a lot of people stop vaccinating, right, and they're going more of the natural, that's wonderful. And I'm a fan. If you're doing your research and you're becoming educated, it's great. It's Hashem created a wonderful natural world. But I love what you're saying, that this is way before the birth control situation. There's something here about women connecting to themselves, to their bodies, and to their cycles. So tell us more. Why is it so important for a woman to be so connected to her cycle? Like you say, we figured out how to deal with it, right? We all know how to use pads and tampons and just get through with it. So tell us more about what happens when we can connect.
So the biggest, I think, gift it gave for me specifically was self-care, knowing how to really care for myself in a way that's fully embodied, fully supportive of what I need for myself and also how I want to show up for others. Because there's this balance that we're constantly moving through as
Okay, one
mothers.
second. I had to snort a little bit. Like when you were like self-care, I'm like, self-care, right?
Sorry.
Right. No, because I think that in today's world, it's one of the
It's a
most,
buzzword,
it's
which
a
is exactly what
buzzword,
I'm getting at. It
right?
was
So
just a
talk to me
buzzword.
about what you
Yeah.
mean. Yeah.
So yeah,
Because
on the
when
one
you're
hand,
saying it, you're not talking about whatever. It's not,
no,
hot
no, no, no,
cocoa.
no, no. I don't mean the
Yeah.
buzzword. That's what it was for me before I discovered cycle awareness. This was just a buzzword for me. Like, okay, yeah, just do self-care, and it was just very vague. I didn't know how to like implement it. I didn't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, what you just go to a spa and you feel better. Like, it didn't make sense to me. This whole, I mean, whatever. Like, I tried to care for myself, but like, it wasn't grounded. It wasn't something that really was working in my life. And then this aligning with my cycle really made so much sense because as women we move through cycles. We have times of rest, we have times of creation. Literally, like Hashem created the world, right? And then he rested on the seventh day. Like, we literally have that in our cycle as well. And we live in a world where it's like glorified to just keep going, and like, all the period product ads are about, you can wear this and just keep moving as if nothing's going on, right? Like, that's the
Right. Like
whole.
the Playtex ad is literally a girl playing tennis
Right. Yeah.
on
And
her
that's
period.
exactly. And that's like glorified. Like, you could do that. Wow. Like, we can do anything bleeding. Like, but what's the point? Like, is
Right.
that
And
really
in
the point?
every ad, they're always wearing white clothing.
Yeah.
As if like the period never happens. It's not a thing.
It's so not realistic. No, the ads are not realistic. But the point is that these messages go into us like, okay, we feel like if I'm tired on my period, like, what's wrong with me? Or if I'm feeling moody or like I don't have energy the few days before my period, it's like, wait, there's something wrong with me because we're programmed that we have to show up all the way 100% 24/7, and that's just not how we work. And it's not how anyone works, male or female, but like, we have the system in our body where we could literally use that, we could optimize it to show us exactly what we need and listen to our body. Also, this, okay, self-care is one buzzword, listening to the body is also another buzzword. It's like also very vague. Like, if we don't know how to listen to our body, where do we start, right? So this just really gives a framework. If we're cycling and we have a period, but we also have ovulation and we also have different phases of the cycle, and we could move through that in a rhythm, and we could visualize the seasons or embody the seasons, or just literally move through and see even just what you have in Ignite, the cycle tracker, just literally putting down one
I'll
word
show
for
it
the
on the
day.
screen.
Yeah.
Just for people who have never seen a cycle tracker before, let's show it to them on the screen. It is a chart that looks something like this. It's a little bit of a wheel. And I don't know if you can see on the top, there are numbers all around it. It's getting a little blurry as I bring it closer. And the idea would be that on each day, right, you're basically operating as a wheel. And on each day, you would just write down one word or one sentence about, how you're feeling, like the dominant feeling of the day, or your dominant energy. Is your energy high? Is your energy low? And you keep it really, really simple just to kind of track your personal progress through the month. And we start Ignite with this. We talk about what it would mean if you could spend a few months cycle tracking, no expectations. But if you could make a practice of every day, just writing down one or two words, after a couple of months, a pattern develops, right? And then when you have that pattern, you use the word optimized. And it's such an interesting word because in an age of technology, optimize just means make everything go better, go faster. And I think
Not what I
when you're talking about self-care, and this is what I think people are having such a hard time with, because when we turn self-care into a buzzword, we're not recognizing what it really is. It's self-compassion, it's self-forgiveness, and optimizing ourselves and our cycle is not about production. It's not about constantly producing. Like there's an an optimal self, even a different side of ourselves that comes out when we allow ourselves to rest, right? We've been so attached to also what we keep saying. We keep getting called, moody, and we judge ourselves for being moody at different times in our cycle, but actually who we can become because of those different hormones. There are times in the cycle where we are softer, where we are kinder, where we are warmer, more nurturing, more loving, where we're quieter or louder. And they don't have to mean moody, right? I think the moodiness or the anger or the PMS comes from resisting all of those different phases. Like the moon is not shy about showing up differently every day, but we are, right? And there's nothing wrong with a moon that's this size or that size. And we have optimized ourselves according to a masculine image. So when you say self-care, what I'm hearing is like self-compassion and self-forgiveness and self-acceptance. It's such a different take on this.
It's really allowing ourselves to just be. And I think a lot of fear comes up around that because if I just let myself rest, then I'll never get back up again. Or there's this judgment of like you just let people just do whatever they want, or you just let yourself do it. Like you have to like live up to a certain standard. And what I've noticed is when I started really aligning with my cycle, I actually started feeling this surge of energy as well, which I never noticed before. Like after my period, after I really took that time to rest and come back to myself, I actually had this like outward surge. Like I literally had a time. I'm not a workout girl, by the way. I know you're like into your gym. I'm not that kind of person. But when I had a few times when during ovulation, like while I was like in that day or so, like I literally did 3 workouts in 24 hours. And not like no, but I'm not that type of person. It was just like I had this energy surge and I needed to do something with it. It was just like I literally felt it and I was able to honor what my body needed. And it's not that just show up the same way. There is value, by the way. There is value to consistency and having certain daily habits. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how we show up. Like you could work out every day, but there are different ways of working out. There's different ways of what your body might need at different times in the cycle. Like just literally like and sometimes there is a place to rest and just take a break. Whatever your body like really, I think that's what it was. Like I started listening to what my body actually needed. Like this PMS mood swing thing, it started becoming a cry of help for my body. Like you need to take space for yourself. You need to eat more. You need to rest more. You need like I literally was able to hear clearly what my body needed. It wasn't just a meltdown. It was literally like my body crying for help. And once we start seeing ourselves through that, yeah, it is self-compassion, it is self-care, and it's really just honoring what we need in different phases of our cycle and just in general. Even when I'm not in this, like it helped me so much even when during, through pregnancy, birth, postpartum, when I didn't have my cycle anchoring me. And you know what? As a person who really learned to anchor my cycle, this was hard for me. Like I just
Anchor your cycle as in, say more.
as in like having that as my tool, my center, my grounding force. Like this is literally what it became for me. And then
Hold up. I want to pause you here for a second. Wait, when I was in Kala classes, and we learned all of these halachos, I remember having this thought like, oh my God, a Jewish woman's life revolves around the bathroom, right? And then here you're
we're bringing
saying
in more of that here.
yeah, but you're saying something very similar, but with a whole different attitude. Like my whole life became anchored by my cycle. Not that my life became dictated by my cycle the way I was like resenting when I was in college classes, like, oh my God, right? We have to live around the toilet. You were like, no, I became anchored by my cycle. And what would you say that difference is?
Because it really just it's like a language. Our body is talking to us and communicating with us, and we learn to like listen to that language. We're able to see, okay, I actually need this now. I actually need that now. I actually um
Our kids are out of bed. I know one of mine walked in before and I was like, better not come into the screen. As you were talking, I had this flash. I have been doing this for a couple of years, right? So you would think that we're good at this because we're doing this for a couple of years. And was it last year? I don't know. It was actually not that. It was not that long ago. It was like maybe 6 months ago. I was having a heavy day at work. I was running 2 breathwork groups, and it was the day of my period. And it was like the first or second day of my period. And it was one of those days. It was hard on me. And I'm not a PMS type of girl, like, generally I work out, I'm good with my body, but I just had that day and I didn't know what was wrong. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what it was, but I had this like epiphany of why are you doing this? You cycle track. Your cycles are fairly regular. You could have predicted with fair certainty, like 1 month ago, that this was the week that you would likely get your period. Why did you schedule such a heavy day today? And this is with a lot of cycle awareness, menstrual tracking, but it took a long time of me menstrual tracking to finally figure out that as a woman, I was allowed to not have to schedule such a heavy day on my period. And it was like this crazy epiphany. Like I think that's also something that, as nice as cycle awareness sounds, and you're talking about how you practice it for years before you went off birth control, the goal isn't only to get
no,
off
not
birth
for
control.
years.
Well, for a while, a month,
Yeah.
okay. But the goal isn't only to get off birth control. The goal is also to literally restructure and reframe our lives. Like in terms of what you're going to schedule in 4 weeks from now, if you know that that's going to be your period. Like, do you really want to schedule a day where you're going to be doing a lot of physical work? Or do you want to schedule it as an accounting day where you're going to be in your office and could potentially take a nap? For someone like me that I do have flexibility with my schedule. These epiphanies, it's crazy. Like you would think that you're in the work for so long and they just keep coming because we're so deeply disconnected from what it means to be anchored by our cycles.
But you know, those moments also, like I also had such a moment once where I scheduled a really big project in my premenstrual week. Like I should know better. Um, but like it's like big deal, whatever. I just have to get this done. And it was
Big
totally
deal, whatever.
right. And it's just like I think these things, these experiences just reinforce it again and again. Like, yeah, I did that and it was it was a total disaster and I should never do it again. And if I think I should do it, like it just whatever. We you know, it's real life, but it just
I
reinforces it
think what's coming up though is the fear. When you said before, like if I rest, I'll never get up again.
again.
And so, like I said, I've been cycle tracking for a while, and I'm pretty good at knowing, which dates are going to be the dates that I'm blooming and I have all of this energy, right? And creative. And last year, I was teaching a training, and I remember that I set aside about a week of time before the training to do nothing but prep for the training. What I was writing the training manual or whatever it was, and of course everything hit in that week, and I was like trying so hard to go against the tide and get everything done. And of course it was just getting worse because it was my body getting worse, whether it was my cycle or everybody in the family was getting sick at that time. And then something magical happened. I hit that day in the cycle. It's just that one day, where I was peaking or whatever. And I wrote the entire manual. I had an 8-hour streak where I did not get up from my desk. And it was just like divine channeling, like pouring through me, right? And I had this moment and this major epiphany, like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That had to repeat itself so many times in my life until I was finally ready to say, I think I can trust this.
Yeah.
It's crazy that every time it happens, it always happens on the same few dates on the cycle. And every time it happens, I can say, oh my gosh, it's those dates. Like I should have known. And yet there's something inside of us that we still don't trust the wisdom of our bodies and that it's going to keep coming back. What is that?
Yeah, I think also like talking about that, I think that was the biggest gift of cycle awareness for me. The fact that, you know, like it's so easy to get stuck in anything really. Like, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with something really hard now. This is never going to end or whatever it is. And I know we have Gamze Yaver, but I feel like it's lip service most of the time. So here it like became an embodied experience. Like my cycle comes back every month and goes through this process every month. And I have my highs and I have my lows and I have my ups and downs. And it's a process that keeps going. And I know it feels like unpredictable, but it really is predictable. It's a rhythm. It's not like the straight line. It's a rhythm, but it ends up being predictable of like, yeah, we move through this rhythm. And it just reassured me that every time I was going through something, a struggle or anything, or even like an intense moment, like think about labor, right? When you hit that most intense moment right before giving birth, like that's when the baby's coming, right? But it's so hard to get past that. It's like this is intense, this is so painful, like you can't get through this. And like and that's also kind of like what the premenstrual you know, whatever you want to call it, that like void is really also it's like pushing through until a new cycle is born. Really, like we're literally reborn each cycle from when, you know, when we have our period, we're like reborn. It's a new beginning, it's a new cycle, it's a new experience. And that's also the gift of cycle awareness that we get to like experience ourselves in so many different ways and have new beginnings all the time. But also this idea of nothing is forever, and that's a plus and a minus, but more mostly a plus because like it's so easy to get stuck in things. But if we have this not just knowledge, it's embodiment. It's my body knows that we'll get through this. And it's more of a centered way of more of a grounded way of living. That's what I meant by my cycle is my anchor and it's grounding me and it's like
I feel
that's
like it's also unapologetic. Like it's an unapologetic way of living. Like, nope, I'm on day 10 of my cycle. Don't talk to me, or whatever it is. It becomes this, I see this a lot, like that women are, I hate to use this word, but women are very often bullied by Western medicine or by doctors or even by men. It could be even their own husbands who claim to know their bodies better than they do. And so many women give up their own, I wouldn't call it autonomy, but their own
sovereignty.
sovereignty, maybe. Yeah, yeah, I like that word because they themselves aren't sure that they know themselves because themselves are constantly changing. And what I'm hearing you saying is that cycle awareness is like this broader lens where you are allowed to change within that framework, and yet it is still a framework that you keep cycling through.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you more about like what is it that you offer, right? So you've taken all of this wisdom that you have, all of these practices that you've practiced on yourself, and then you catapulted much sooner than you thought, right? You
Not
thought it was going to be
imagine.
like maybe in 10
Yeah.
years. Yeah, you're
And
here.
then we
It's
got in touch and we started talking about different ways of like where I can take this officially. Because like, okay, it's one thing to have my own knowledge, but I wanted to train in a way that I could actually bring this forward. And so I started with a life coaching training. You were telling me like first get basic, like it's almost like we built our own, you know, like in college they have, you know, different tracks and different semesters and you kind of like build your own um degree. You have your degree with everything included. We kind of built our own system
our
here.
own system, right?
Yeah, because it was like, who does this? It's like such a unique kind of role that I or dream or goal that I had that like we had to like sort of build it very specifically. So I started with a life coaching training and that really like helped me in so many ways to get further in this area. It actually even just personally, just the personal transformation just gave me the courage to like open my Instagram page and like different things started happening. Just I just want to share like before I even have like anything to offer yet, I just wanted to share everything that I had. And that was really like that itself was like a whole process of just growth for myself. And then I looked into these fertility awareness trainings and there are a lot of different ways of doing this. I wanted to obviously do it the best way because like I think we share that ambitious streak, maybe it's in the genes. Um,
Yeah, if you know who our grandmothers are, it's definitely in the genes.
So I looked into it, and there are you can take a 6 month training, where you get basic like you know you learn how to teach the method, fine, but then there's like a 2 year training, and this 2 year training is like a master's level training, and there's like about 4 schools in the entire world that give this training, and it becomes there's something called the AFAP, the Association of Fertility Awareness Professionals. I feel so fancy. It's this certification only goes for these 4 schools, and the requirements it's very rigorous training. It's a 2 year training and you learn not just fertility awareness, you learn body literacy, you learn cycle awareness, you learn everything about women's health and different conditions that come up, like PCOS, endometriosis, hormone imbalances, everything connected, like the liver and the thyroid. Like there's so many different things connected.
Systemic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we get all that training, and because every woman is different, every woman will need to be approached in a different way. It's not like it's really like this method, fertility awareness is pretty simple, straightforward if you have a regular cycle, and that's why there's this misconception out there it only works for people with regular cycles, and that is really far from the truth. But when there are different things going on, you might need more support, you might need more guidance, and that's what we're trained to do. Like we're trained to look at different things that could come up in the cycle that are not so straightforward. So we took all that training and we learned all that for 2 years, and we also had a
That's what I'm,
really
by the way, that is what I am so hung up on. That when you're talking about your work, you're talking about having just spent 4 years in school.
basically
And I think this is again, this is something that I keep wanting to bring out again and again. Like you literally put yourself through college. And this is something that I
it's very
give,
different than the first college experience, though.
I
It's
know,
different when it's your
right?
passion. Like I love everything I was learning for sure.
Yeah, I know, but I just keep wanting to bring this out because it's a very strong value of mine that when you're dealing with something as sensitive as women, women's health, women's bodies, fertility, cycle, cycle awareness, and, going back to your coaching training also about holding space for women and all of that sensitive subject, this is not something like you need to know. I think clients need to know that when they go to someone like you, right? They have to ask. They should know. They should know enough to ask about their schooling. It's not something that you can learn in an online course in 5 minutes. It's 2 years. It's like it's equivalent to someone going for a social work degree, right? It's
There
it's
was an
two
intense
years.
internship. Like I remember even complaining to you, like I'm doing all this work
Yeah.
for free, but
And your internship project, you did your whole Taras Mishpacha project.
yeah, there was so because we had to do community work as well, and in our community, it's like Taras and Shpach is a big part of this work. So I kind of brought it home in that way. Um, yeah, I mean, we were talking about taking the college teacher training as well in the beginning, and what I found was when I started doing my life,
Right. You did
yeah,
your life coach training, the Kala teacher
yeah.
training,
So
your fertility awareness. I mean, you've been on, and you had a baby and you moved in between. I feel like this is a repeat of Nachama's conversation. Like you both had babies, did Kala
you
teacher
know what
training,
I
and you
think? I
moved.
think when you have this creative energy in your life, it just manifests in so many different ways.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, we're busy getting our degrees and having babies and moving. It's all just
It happens.
creativity.
Yeah. But what I wanted to say is I started doing life coaching in terms like I focused on cycle awareness. I was coaching women through so I wasn't doing fertility awareness yet. I was just doing cycle awareness of like whatever is going on in your life, using the menstrual cycle as a tool for healing, for transformation, for whatever self-care like we were talking about, whatever it is that you want to work on. Like the cycle could really be like your guide in that. So I was was working on that, and I noticed over and over it kept coming up. I was working with from Orthodox Jewish women, and it kept coming up. Like my whole problem with my cycle is that when I'm nida, like I just don't like being nida. Like that was the whole problem. So it wasn't even like I hate my cycle. It's just I hate this struggle that this brings for me. So it's just that made me realize how important integrating this work together really is. And the college teacher training gave me so much in that department for sure. Like, we've taken the same training. It's incredible how she approaches this work.
And she, for those people who don't know, is Rachel Goldbaum.
Yeah.
She trained me, she trained Nechama, she trained Pessy, and if you want to get, she trained a bunch of Ignite members who were so inspired that they wanted to go turn to college teachers. I'm a big fan of her work.
Yeah. And it's even like just the idea of like, right, going back to how our tradition really embodies cycle awareness in so many ways. Taharas Mishpacha is literally a cycle awareness practice. Like literally for generations we were in tune, and you were saying it as like, oh, our life is around the bathroom, but like literally our whole life as a Jewish woman is centered around our cycle. And I really believe that, again, this is take with a grain of salt. Like if it resonates, fine. But like I think at some level, it's because we're so disembodied in our generation that Taharas Mishpacha is hard, because it's meant to be an embodied practice. It's meant to be something we connect to as our cycle. But if we're not connected, it's like it's such a drag. It's like not something that feels aligned, or I really think it's like a really an inner alignment kind of thing. And again, everything we could work on the outside and on the inside. So I don't know if it's going to resonate for everyone, but that's
I hear that very strongly. So because I think today we are disembodied. We live in a world that is designed to disembody us. There's all this media, it captures our vision, right? We're taught to like disrespect our bodies, literally drink as much coffee as you need to just to get through the day. We're living in such unhealthy ways. I mean, just 100 years ago, it's not that long. People didn't have electricity the way we had today. They couldn't keep the midnight oil burning. You had to go to bed when it was dark outside. And now all of a sudden you don't ever have to go to sleep. You can keep the lights on for longer. So we are disembodied. We're in a world that wants us to be disembodied. So if you could, if there was one tool or one piece of info that you wished everybody knew, what would it be? And I know there's so many, but if there's one building block, one foundational piece, what would you tell people?
So I think that really like so many of us have different relationships with our bodies for different reasons, depending what we've been through, because our body really holds so much, right? The body keeps the score, like whatever we've been through is stored in our body. So something that is a real game changer for many people is that light switch moment of my body is actually my ally. It's not here to fight me. It's not here to like be against me in any way. Like it's really my ally. And even if something is off balance or there's something going on, it's not here to punish me. It's not here to like work against me. It's showing me something. And like that whole mindset, like I'll give you an example, right? So ovulation can be delayed sometimes, right? Like typically ovulation, day 14 is just a typical day, but I don't like working with textbook. Like everyone has a different cycle and everything is normal. I mean, there's normal ranges, but for some reason, sometimes our ovulation can be delayed. And the reason and this can be caused by stress. It can be caused by not having enough nutrients in the body. It can be like anything that tells the body, because what does ovulation literally mean on a body level? That the body feels ready to get pregnant, whether you're in that space or not. Like that's what our ovulation literally means. Like there's the potential for that. So if the body is not sensing that safety of like, okay, there's not enough for you, for your own life, where you're in survival mode, we don't have enough resources for another, like, ovulation is going to have to be, held back for a little bit. So really, if you think about it at a survival level, it's working for us. It's like, we can't like totally delete ourselves in the pursuit of creating new life. Like it has to be that fullness. From that fullness we create, right? Ovulation is that fullness, that full moon, or that full potential. So it's not like from that empty place or from, like it's I'm trying to like just string it together.
No, I really hear that. I really hear that. That's
I think people can look at it as like a condition or something is off if my body's ovulating late or what's going on. But
No, it's
really, there's a
exactly what you're
reason.
saying. It's like your
Yeah.
body telling you when it is full and when it is not ready to be full. I think that's also something so powerful for me. You know a little bit about my story, right? I dealt with infertility Former cancer survivor. It was something I expected. I can't say that I was tragically heartbroken over it because I think I was very lucky to deal with infertility in almost in a cold and clinical, almost detached way because I was expecting it. But it amazed me. It amazes me how quickly we send people to do IVF or Clomid or fertility enhancing drugs, and it's like, but wait, have we listened? Have we tried to really hear what the body is saying? There's a reason. And I think that's what's also so important that people need to understand. And you kind of started saying that with your schooling, that your schooling is systemic, right? You're not just looking at, what takes 2 years, because you're not just discussing periods. You're discussing every system in the body that is involved in this. And I think that's what people are not understanding also, is that if there's something wrong with your fertility, your fertility is sending you a message. It's not that your ovulation is off. Your ovulation is off because something else is going on. And you can either stuff yourself with drugs and make yourself ovulate, force yourself to ovulate, but then we're also ignoring a very loud warning sign. The body wants you to know something. And wouldn't you rather know what it is? So tell me more about what you now offer, because you're offering so much. You offer cycle awareness and fertility awareness, and you're doing these postpartum classes, and I mean, you launched your website, and every day you're sending me more and more screenshots of what you're going to be offering. So tell us.
I'm working so hard on it. I only have one thing ready on my website. That's the workshop that I'm offering next week in Restructuring.
Next week?
Yeah, next week, Wednesday, I'm giving a workshop. So really, from all these things, that really fertility awareness is my focus now. As much as my full passion is cycle awareness and fertility awareness being a part of it, because this is something that like a lot of women are looking for. And right now, that's what I'm setting up. Like once that's set up, maybe I'll expand to the other things as well. But I'm really laser focused now on getting up one offer, one course that I really, really passionately want to give on fertility awareness, because I want to give it over in the way that I was trained to give it over, and the way that gives you a full experience. I was doing it already in a one-on-one program for a while now, but it's something that not everyone can access the one-on-one for different reasons. So like the group makes it more accessible to more people, and it also gives you the group experience. There's something about having that sisterhood, that community while you're doing this work, because it's actually one of the factors of making this work effectively. There are a few factors that make fertility awareness more effective. It's learning it correctly, having the support, like either working with an educator or someone that can give you the feedback and support, and the community aspect. Because if you're just one person alone and everyone in your life is just using birth control, it's a lonely experience, and you don't have really people who resonate with you. So this community aspect really helps so much for this to be more. It actually is a factor of effectiveness, believe it or not. So this is what I'm creating now. I'm creating this group offer. I'm literally taking my one-on-one package that so many people are just doing phenomenally on. They're just learning so much and having an amazing experience getting onto this like fam bandwagon, so to speak, but like in a really
bandwagon.
but like in a really wholesome way. Like they're so confident. Like my goal is to offer confidence. Like I really want everyone to be confident with how they're doing it and really feel they've got this, they have it for life. This is the skill for life. Like, how you take, I don't know, any skill that you learn, even Tahar Samishpacha, right? Like you went through plenty amount of college classes to get the skill fully for life, and then sometimes you even want to do a refresher or relearn it, but you have it, you learn it for life. It's an experience. It's something that you then take with you. So this is kind of how I structure it. So I do the one-on-one is a 4-month program. The group course I'm going to do as the 1 month of learning, but then people can add on if they want the one-on-one support as well. So in the one-on-one, I did 4 months, 1 month of learning, which is going to be transferred now as an option in the group course. And then the 3 months of follow-up, which is equally, if not more important than the learning. Because the learning, anyone can learn information. You could read a book, you could take a class, like you could take in information. But there's something about that feedback and that accountability and really doing it together. That's really where, and also like going over your charts together. Like we learned so much, like, oh, they didn't really get this.
You say charts, and I'm watching women's faces go like, what?
Sorry.
No, I think this is a very big, this is a very big factor, the technical aspect and the intimidation factor. When you say, it's like learning it, we make sure everybody gets it and they really get it. And it's like, I know for myself, I didn't feel confident doing this for a very long time. I resisted it for a very, very long time because I was 100% sure that I was going to be too overwhelmed. I was not going to be smart enough or dedicated enough. The minute we said charts, I was like, nope, I'm out. I mean, tell us more. What do you do with someone like me? I mean, I'm not there now, thank God. But what do you do with someone like me who really thinks like, oh my gosh, this is too much. It's not. Take
So
my
that's where
temperature every
I was
day. Are
telling,
you
yeah.
crazy?
So that's where I was telling you that I'm actually going to take a page out of your book, and I do want to offer women who join this course to come back every year and re-experience it again for free. Like once you're signed in, you're here for life. You have lifetime access. Because for this reason, like even if you do start right away, it's always good to like have that refresher and just to like, and also like have that community. Like it's building the community of support around it. But just for this reason alone. Let's say you're thinking about it, you want to start, but you're not sure if you trust yourself yet, if you want to like fully commit, but like it looks interesting and you want to get more into it. So you could get into it and then you'll have it next year or, whenever you want to get involved more physically in your life, you'll have the resources. So that's kind of what I want to implement for that. Um, and then in terms of like the physical, I want to kind of like really just I call this a 3-minute practice just to like really simplify what this practice actually is. It's less than 3 minutes a day, practically speaking. Yes, you have to learn it, you have to know what you're doing. But once you get the hang of it, it's less than 3 minutes a day. You take your temperature in the morning, you check for cervical fluid whenever you were ready, go to the bathroom. So yeah, we live our life in the bathroom. But no, literally, like we try to incorporate it in your daily practice already anyway. So you get up in the morning, so you make this a morning routine. If again, everyone's gonna have a different like I'm not one thing I want to tell you, I'm not here to convert anyone to track with fertility awareness. Like that's totally not my goal. I am not here telling everyone come do this method. Like I'm here if you want to learn it. There are enough people interested. Like I don't have to like change the whole world here. Like it's one woman at a time.
But my question to you is that also, even if people are not looking to get off the pill or the IUD, right? You're still saying that the fertility awareness method is something that is worthwhile for women to learn,
I think so.
regardless.
Yeah, because it's knowledge about your body that you were probably never taught. I had a client who's actually a registered nurse, and she's like, "We never learned this in nursing school." And I felt so like, "Oh, I taught a nurse something she didn't learn in nursing school."
No, but that's a big factor. I
Yeah,
think people don't realize this. They
yeah,
don't learn this in nursing school. And how many of our own OBGYNs, right, our doctors, they don't learn this because what they're learning is Western medicine. What they're learning is actual chemicals, medicine. They're not, the natural way is not, it's been lost. It's really been lost.
I think they know about it, but I think it's this trust that women can actually do this that's not so accepted.
Is it the trust that women as clients can do this or women in general?
In
Like,
general, because if you're taking an IUD, let's say, and it's considered 99.9% effective, let's say, then you're trusting the method, you're trusting the device, you're trusting the medicine around it. That's something that's considered trustworthy in our Western world. But if you're relying on a user-dependent method, which is reliant on the woman knowing how to practice it, it's like, oh, we can't trust that. Who says she'll know? Like, women don't know whatever. Like, it's just this like
no,
less trust
so my
around.
question is, are we not trusting women to be on top of this? Or are we not trusting that this is trustworthy, that
Yeah,
women's
both. I think
bodies
both.
say the
Yeah,
truth,
I think both.
right? I mean, I think I didn't trust, I think for me it was mixed. For a long time I didn't trust myself, right? Like, can I be consistent? Can I take my temperature? Can I track? Well, I know what I'm doing. Am I smart enough? But then also, like I said before, the idea of, oh my gosh, like I should not schedule a hardworking day on the day of my period. Like, can I trust that the energy will come back? Like, do we really trust that this cycle has the answers to that degree?
Right. And the answer is like your body is going to keep reaffirming it for you. So in the beginning, it can be like, oh, I don't know if I can trust this. And that's why we actually give it 3 months. When we start fertility awareness, we give it 3 months to practice. And that's why it's really good if someone is on the IUD and the copper IUD, stay on it, practice for 3 months, and then see how you feel about it. Do you feel more confident? And then if someone is not, let's say someone is getting over the pill or something else, you have to have another backup method. So that's when you, every time you confirm ovulation through this method, it's like another, I call it like another deposit in the confidence account. Like, yeah, our body knows what it's doing. Like, yeah, we confirmed ovulation. We got our period 2 weeks later. It's like another, like every single part of it is another, like I remember still in the beginning, like every single part was another like reassurance. And then after a few months, you really start trusting it just because your body is showing you that it's true.
That's, I think, what we really need to come back to more than anything. I think for a lot of women, they're very intrigued by the idea of, oh, this holistic approach and pull out the IUD. And for me, I think what I really hope that women are hearing from this conversation is that there's a lot more to this than just like, if the pill is working for you, right? Or if the IUD is working for you, stick with it. There are so many people that it is working for. And
Mhm.
I think that that's also another thing that's missing. We're not having enough people in the holistic world who are championing for do what works, But even as you figured out what works, there's something very magical for you here that everyone should have the opportunity to explore and discover. And for me, I think the biggest form of magic is the wisdom of the body.
Yeah.
The fact that the body is consistent and it does have something to tell us. And I know, I want you to share because I know that this is true for you. You've seen clients get pregnant,
Yeah.
right? Clients who didn't think that
Who
they could get pregnant naturally.
Right, who've done IVF and their doctors told them they can't get pregnant naturally, they don't ovulate, and then they started tracking, and of course they ovulate, just not in the time frame that we're supposed to. Maybe,
Yeah.
or something else going on, but it really helps so much. So the fertility awareness month, I know this is not spoken enough, so thank you for bringing it up. It's like it's the buzz that we're hearing about FAM is birth control, natural birth control. Fertility awareness is actually not birth control. It's literally just being aware of our fertile patterns. We can get pregnant just any day of the cycle. We have a fertile window of about 5 to 7 days each cycle, and we're literally just tuning into that pattern. Oh, I'm fertile today. I'm not fertile today. This is when my fertile window opens. This is when my fertile window closes. And then it depends where you're at in life. If you're trying to prevent pregnancy, if you're trying to achieve pregnancy, or if you're not like in neither of those zones and you just want to know your body and your like what it shows about your health, because our cycle shows us so much about our overall health as well. Either way, it's just fertility awareness is just having literally that awareness of our fertility. And then if you want to prevent pregnancy naturally, have a plan for the fertile window because that's when you can get pregnant. If you want to get pregnant, that's when you optimize. That's your chance to get pregnant. But it's more than just having people think it's just about timing, like, oh, knowing your timing when to get pregnant. It's more than the timing. It's having an understanding of your hormones and your body and your fertility. It's more than just the timing of ovulation. It's how long is your luteal phase? The luteal phase, for those who don't know, is the time between after ovulation until your next period. That is when we have progesterone, which is a hormone that we only make once we ovulate, and this hormone is so important for healthy pregnancy. So this is also something that we can monitor with our cycles. And I usually again, just like it's recommended 3 months to chart for birth control, it's also recommended 3 months of preconception. Like, sure, you want to get pregnant right away, fine, but like, give your body a chance, especially if you're coming off birth control. I want to say this because, like, give your body a chance to really come back to your own baseline, to your own hormones, to your own and just really see what's going on, and give yourself that chance to support your body to, bring in that healthy pregnancy.
Yeah, I mean, we are very attached women, right? You're either dealing with your period, right? Or you're dealing with fertility, or you're dealing with contraception, right? And there's not enough of the feeling, right? Like
Yeah.
you're talking about the preconception and being in that feeling state of just really the rhythm of your cycle. People are like, "No, I want to get pregnant and I want to get pregnant now." And you're like, "No, but pregnancy," and I think also pregnancy, we say that pregnancy is 9 months. No, it's not. It's like 2 years.
Yeah.
There's at least 3 months before a pregnancy that you need to be involved. You should be involved because if you're not involved, you're missing out on something amazing, right? And then there's a couple of months after pregnancy where, for humans, we have something called the fourth trimester that we're not talking about. Your body needs an actual another 3 months, right? The baby needs it and the mommy needs it. And of course, we live in America where there's no maternity leave, there's no nothing. But like if we were really again in line with the rhythms of our body, we wouldn't think of separating ourselves from our babies for the next 3 months after the babies are born. There's so much wisdom here that we're completely missing out on. So I want to ask you about that point about missing out. There are women who are coming to you having missed out, right? Like, what do you do when a woman has had two babies through IVF and then she comes to you and she has her third baby naturally, and it's this like, I can't imagine what women are feeling like. Or women who are coming to you a little later in the game, maybe when they're premenopausal and they need help with hot flashes or those kinds of things, and they're learning now for the first time. I know, for myself, I had some grief and some mourning about things I did not know. I allowed the Western medicine world to put me on hormones for a long time, because of having gone through cancer and all of the reasons that they gave me to stop menopause from happening early. But I know other people who already are in menopause and they're only reading books like Cycle Savvy, which are written for teenagers, and they're only reading it now. And there's this deep sense of grief and loss. And how do you address that?
Yeah. So for someone who's already past menopause, I think it's a different experience than someone who could still actually experience this and have whatever years are left. Um, yeah, I think yeah, like you're saying, there is the grief to that, and there's no sugarcoating that. At the same time, I would say, like, okay, the best time to learn was yesterday. The second best time is now.
I love that. I love that.
Like, yeah, I mean, there is definitely, first of all, something I think really important to point out here is what we have, we also give over to our next generations, right? So even if it's something that we aren't experiencing all our reproductive years, we could give it over to our daughters, to, whoever is in our life. Um, but even someone who's, let's say, postmenopausal or let's say perimenopausal, there are ways to really embody and live in this, what we spoke about before, the cycle awareness for those last few years, um, really making the most out of it and really living this experience in a way that you, again, everyone's gonna have a different experience around this, but to hopefully feel like you reclaim that for yourself. I know we didn't even go into the whole reclaim womanhood name, but that's like the
Talk
biggest
about it.
piece for
Talk
me.
about Reclaim Women
I
Call.
literally feel like reclaim it.
What did I just say? Recall Women Hall. What recall? Reclaim Womanhood. It's getting late. Reclaim Womanhood is your handle on Instagram.
And it
Tell us
became my
more.
business name also. It's just like, it just was so organic. It just happened. And it just literally is the message of everything that I stand for. Like, yeah, reclaim our womanhood, whether it's cycle awareness, whether it's fertility awareness, whether it's knowing our bodies, whether it's, living in the rhythm of our own flow and our own cycles. And like, even if the world is telling us something else, it's reclaiming what we have for ourselves, reclaiming this gift, reclaiming this process. So yeah, if it's later in life, you're still reclaiming it in a different way. There will be more grief around it. There will also be more of that reclamation of like, yeah, having experienced all that for so many years, there's an even bigger reclamation in a sense in that experience. And then let's say after menopause, so what's coming to mind is I think when Rachel Goldbaum shared this with us once, where somebody was learning about mikvah after she was already menopausal, postmenopausal, and she really wanted to experience this. So there is, I think, a halacha that if she was never to the mikvah, she should go one time and like become tahar, even if she doesn't have her period anymore. So she can make that experience, like, right, we were talking about how that experience could become her ultimate reclamation of mikvah. So again, she's not going to have her periods per se, but she can, let's say, take a moon cycle and really align with that and feel into those different energies and even like reclaim the parts of her own cycle that maybe she felt ashamed of or she didn't particularly like have a, let's say, good relationship with. And that, I mean, again, everyone's going to have their personal journey with this, but that can
And
be a
my
really
understanding,
personal.
though, is that you can still connect with the moon cycle
Yeah,
even after
absolutely.
menopause. It will still have an effect on you.
Yeah,
And were
sure.
you the one who introduced me to the word queenager?
No, I think maybe it was Esty, Sarah Esty.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah,
There was a WhatsApp group started about a year ago for the pre-menopausal women calling themselves queenagers. And I
yeah,
was like, I can't, that is a word that's, because I think that's also something that people need to know
yeah.
that, pre-menopause does not have to be a nightmare.
The same book, Wild Power, that we mentioned, they came out with a new book called Wise Power for the whole transition of menopause. I didn't read it yet personally, but if it's anything like Wild Power, it's must be incredible. And I know a little bit about their like approach to menopause. It's kind of like, the second spring, or like a rebirth. And it's instead of thinking of, oh my gosh, the whole our life is ending, or like this is the end, or like this, or whatever it is. It's really, first of all, a rebirth, but also a almost like a an evolution into our power. Like we spend all these, what was this Indian quote? There was like this quote, um the menstruating years are, we practice our power, at menarche, when we start getting our periods, we meet our power. Throughout the cycling years, we practice our power, and at menopause we become our power.
That is so beautiful. That
Yeah,
is
so
so
happy I
beautiful.
remembered
I
that
I
because that's
love
what.
that. That is gorgeous. And yeah, I mean, my understanding is that, everyone complains about premenopause and the hot flashes. And I want to bring it back to what you said in the very beginning of this call. Premenopause and all of the hot flashes and all of that stuff is basically another version of PMS, right?
It's kind
And
of like if you think of the life cycle as also a cycle. So that's like another, like premenstrual is like the inner autumn. So think of it as an extended inner autumn as we sort of come back to some kind of inner hibernation, back to ourselves, and then we get reborn again in that sense.
so what my understanding is, though, that if you can mitigate the symptoms of PMS by listening to your body, and then all of a sudden you don't have symptoms of PMS because the PMS was only trying to tell you that your body needed something. I'm suspecting that when it comes to premenopause, we can do the same thing. Premenopause does not have to look like hot flashes and mood swings and all of that. It's like, and I think women need to know this because they can start getting ready. They can start listening to their bodies, taking care of their bodies. They don't have to go through all of that. All of those things that we take for granted, like PMS, right? Or PMDD or whatever it is that women struggle. And we say it's normal.
Not normal.
It's not normal. These are
Period
the
pain is also
signs,
not normal. We have to say
right? Period pain is not normal. You should not be cramping. These, we if you Google them, they will say, no, this is normal. It is not normal. These are the signs that something is out of alignment.
I
And the
will
reason
say though,
yeah,
yeah.
say it. Yeah.
Yeah, that about period pain, that sometimes because this is a very like I like to think of it as a somatic experience. Our cycle is holding what we're experiencing and it's a reflection of what's going on in our life. And I had a period in my life where okay, I healed all my PMS from in this way from the mindset of like really aligning with my cycle and honoring my cycle. And then I was going through a really painful like just block in life and my period was so painful. And part of me was like taking so much comfort in that. Like my period gets me, my cycle gets me, it's feeling it with me. And it was like such an interesting way to feel my period pain. But like it was I didn't have it for months at a time. I was really like sort of healed because I was in alignment and I was doing well and I didn't have like I was managing my stress well. And then I had this like sort of, thing coming at me. And then that's how my cycle responded. So
That's amazing. It was really just reflecting where you were at. And it was giving you almost permission to take the rest that maybe you weren't going to be taking.
yeah.
All right, amazing. I want to keep to time, and I know that there are some questions in the chat that I would love to get to. So before we go to the questions, just tell us, where can people find you?
Did we like talk about fertility awareness enough? I feel like that was just a small slice of the conversation.
I know, because I think we spoke about so much more fascinating things, and I want people to look you up. I mean, we can, that we can talk for hours and hours. We can talk for hours. I think that women should hear that this conversation did not even begin to touch upon anything that Pessy does. Like the concept and the subject of women's cycle, women's fertility, the power that you have when you're connected to these things, it is limitless. It really is. So tell us one more thing and tell us where to find you before we go to the questions.
So my Instagram handle is Reclaim Womanhood. You can also be on my email list. That's probably a better way to sort of get updated on everything that I'm doing these days. I think we'll put the link for that. There's a link for
We
the
will.
email. What
What's
else?
your website? Is your website live yet?
So it's not live yet, but we could put the link for the workshop. So I just have
Okay.
a page now. So I'm giving a workshop next week, Wednesday, at 8:00 p.m. And it's going to be recorded if you can't make it live. And it's literally like, okay, so what I was getting a lot, we were talking about how, me and you were talking about how the one-on-one package or even the course, it's like, it has to really reflect the value of what I'm offering. And not everyone is just expecting to pay that. Like, okay, I just want to get a workshop and learn and just like get over it. But like, you're really getting so much more. You're getting the full support and the container and everything around it. But I do want to offer sort of a low ticket way for anyone to access this information because I think everyone should know about it. So it's just a 1 hour workshop with time for live Q&A at the end, all about the fertility awareness methods. So everything we didn't cover here. Like we didn't
Yeah,
get
I
to
feel like
that part.
this is the appetizer, and now you should go to her workshop and hear everything you didn't hear today about what the fertility awareness method is. And this workshop is for anyone, right? Like
Yeah.
whether they're pregnant or postpartum, like it doesn't matter if you're pregnant, you can still be on this call,
You can
right?
always, yeah, you can always learn this information. It's about your cycle. It's about how our cycle works. Everything we weren't taught about our cycle, everything we weren't taught about our hormones and fertility, and then how this method works based on real biology and real science. It works off like I don't like just giving off a list of rules. Here, this is the fertility awareness method. Go follow these rules. I don't work that way. I don't like to follow rules. But
Are
but
we
if I
related?
understand, are we? But if I
Yeah,
understand,
so fun fact, our grandmothers used to cheat on each other's tests in schools.
really.
Yeah, did you know that my grandmother used to do your grandmother's tests in exchange for your grandmother doing the dishes when it was my grandmother's turn?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Good to know.
so yeah, just so that you know, my grandmother, they used to like write each other's names on the top of the test papers. Yeah, so yeah, rules are a thing. Yeah. Go
So,
for it.
so yeah, how I like to approach this information, and I teach this information by really giving you the full picture, not even a way like you don't have to memorize anything or take notes. You get a full understanding of how our amazing body works. And from that knowledge, it makes sense to you. Oh, my temperature goes up because I make progesterone only after ovulation. Why? Because you understand how the ovaries and the uh, ovulation and corpus luteum, all these fancy words that you're gonna know it off the tip of your tongue,
Corpus luteum.
right?
Wow.
But my point is like it makes sense. It makes sense how our body works. And then obviously, oh, our temperature goes up after ovulation. That's why we know we ovulated. Like it won't just be like just a fact that you have to memorize. It will be a fact that becomes a part of you because you understand how your body works. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Amazing. And we will definitely include the links to the workshop next week. How much were you charging for that workshop again?
$27. It's literally a steal. Come on, guys.
$27, and they get the recording after, right?
You get the recording for about 2 weeks. And
Okay.
then, yeah, and then in May, I don't have the link ready yet. I'm working really hard on it. I
But
really
tell us what we can expect, and then we'll
Yeah,
sign
I
up to your
wanted to have
mailing
it
list.
ready, but it takes a lot, it takes a lot of work. Um, the the course that I'm giving in May, it's 4 weeks, so it's like 8 hours of live classes. Everything you need to know about your cycles, about your fertility, about your hormones, how this is practiced in every life stage, whether you're trying to get pregnant, whether you're trying to avoid getting pregnant, whether you're in perimenopause, whether you have PCOS, whatever is going on, this is going to address all of it. And really, like, my goal when I teach this is it shouldn't be an overwhelming way. Like, I know how overwhelmed women get from this. It's literally just like a place to come together and you get resources and recordings and information. Like, you don't have to take, I mean, if you want, there are some people who like taking notes. Be my guest, no problem. But my goal is that it shouldn't be like that. You're not here to like come back to school. You're here to learn and grow and really come back to your body. So that's kind of how that's structured. And can't wait for this.
And and
Wait, this is like the cherry on top. Everyone who joins that course, and someone was telling me, like, you're crazy for doing this. This is so not like aligned with like what proper business should be. Like, you're totally like just overselling your over giving from yourself. But this is just something that's important to me. Everyone who joins it's called Embodied Womanhood, by the way, the course. Everyone who joins the Embodied Womanhood course gets a complimentary half-hour follow-up session with me personally, one-on-one session.
wow.
Because it's not just enough to know that I told you the information and maybe you received it, maybe you didn't. I want to actually speak to you personally, know how it landed for you, know how, and you could even do it a month later after you have a chart, and we even could go over your chart if you want, or you could do it right away if you want to just like decompress, whatever. You could choose whenever you want to do this follow-up session. Everyone gets it. Now there's another follow-up layer because we're extra like that, what, right?
We extra.
The 4-month one-on-one package that I have now, I'm kind of like making a crossover with the course and the one-on-one package. So you do the course for 1 month, and then you get 3 months of follow-up one-on-one support. So you get everything that my one-on-one clients get, which is full unlimited messaging support in between sessions, a monthly follow-up with your chart, literally everything you need to get up and going with actually charting. Because again, like I said, learning is learning, and then implementing is implementing. And I want to actually make sure that you're set up for success. So if that is something that you want to, like, this is an investment for life, I want to do it all the way, and then I have it for life. Like, literally, you can actually like message me, I don't know, a few months down the road with a question about your chart. Like, is this like a time shift? Whatever it is, I'm here for you. Once you're my client, you're my client. We're not going to get nitty-gritty about that. But this is the offer of the regular course. And then there's a half-hour one-on-one follow-up for everyone. And I hope I'm not going to regret it. Like, if it's way too overwhelming, I might not do it again. So like, do it just this year. And you get lifetime access, so you can come back again. And
Wow.
you can do
Lifetime access to the May offering.
yeah, right.
Wow.
Meaning that not lifetime access, as in you can always access the material, but when I give it again next year, you can come back, just like
So
you have
same
to.
like with Ignite, you can
Yeah,
rejoin any future cohort.
yeah, because I feel like if you learned it already, like, why should, like, who's coming back to a course that they learned already to pay again? I don't feel like I would lose out a lot from offering that, and I feel like there's so much to gain from everyone who could actually come back and just
At different stages also. In a
yeah,
year from now, you might
exactly.
be postpartum,
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
100%. We definitely go through postpartum, all the different stages for sure.
Wow, that is incredible. Thank you so much. We have a couple minutes and I want to get to some of your questions because people are very excited with the stuff that you've been sharing. And I'm excited to hear how you're going to answer some of those questions. So let's go through them. Spend a couple of minutes. Okay, someone says, okay, I want to be able to know when to expect my period having PCOS and very erratic cycles. How does cycle awareness or fertility awareness method work with PCOS?
So the method that I teach is called the symptothermal method. There are different kinds of fertility awareness methods. We're not going to go into it. Some are more like calculation based, like if you have a 28-day cycle, this is how it works. And it only works for people who have regular cycles. That's why there's this misconception out there. But then there's the method that I teach is literally about observing what's actually going on in your body. So kind of like I can predict the weather. I can say, or the weather forecast could predict that it's going to rain tomorrow. But is that the same accurate as actually standing tomorrow outside and seeing that it's raining? Right? So it's kind of like that. Like, it's not about predicting what's going to happen. It's actually being in the moment and seeing what's happening today in my body. What is my fertility showing me today? Am I fertile? Am I not? And there's rules, I don't even like the word rules. There's guidelines for the method of actually tracking what's happening in our body and how to track our fertility. So if you have PCOS or you don't have the regular typical monthly cycle, you can still track it. You can know exactly when your fertile window opens, when it closes, what's going on in your cycle, what's going on in your hormones. There are so
So
many.
you're saying that someone with PCOS is still ovulating.
Yeah.
but they just
But
need to
I mean,
track
again, it
it.
depends on the cycle, but they could actually know if they're charting, they'll know if they ovulate. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing because
Yeah.
most people with PCOS are told,
That
it's just
right.
hopeless.
That was my pregnancy client who was told that she could only get pregnant through IVF, and then she ovulated on day 30, I think. And she got
Wow,
pregnant. She has a beautiful daughter.
that's amazing. Thank
Yeah.
you. All right, let's move on to the next question. Someone asks, if someone is on the hormonal pills or copper IUD, do they still experience seasons and energy surges in the same way people who are only using FAM or the diaphragm for child spacing?
So first of all, let's differentiate between hormonal pills and copper IUD, hormonal birth control in general, and copper IUD. Because copper IUD, you're still experiencing your own cycles. You're not changing the cycle. You're not manipulating. It could still affect. The copper could still affect anything that's stressing our body in some way, like inflammation is going to affect our cycle. But it's not the copper IUD doesn't work in a way to manipulate our cycle. The hormonal birth control does. So just to
Okay.
differentiate that, because you're actually still cycling your own cycle on the copper IUD. So yeah, you can go through the seasons and you can have your winter and your spring and your summer and your autumn. But if you're on the pills or other hormonal birth control, um, you could see, look, the way I did it when I was in the pill, I literally followed this approach of, okay, my first week when I bleed, that's my inner winter, and then I have the next week is my inner spring, and the next week, you don't ovulate on the pill, so that's kind of why you don't really have the surges as much, because our hormones are ovulation. Ovulation is what creates our hormones, so it might not be the same experience, but you could still have that cyclical rhythm. You could tune into it and see what happens for you.
Right, and you're saying that even when you're on the pill, you're still cycling,
So
whether it's with
right.
the
So
moon or
hormonally,
the.
right. Hormonally, you're not going to have the same experience. But if you're asking about cycle awareness to live in a cyclical rhythm, you could still do that. Just not for fertility awareness.
Right, so she's asking also like about the surge. So you're saying you're still going to
Probably
have
not.
these
Yeah,
seasons,
probably not the same way.
right? But you're
You
still
know,
going to
we
have the
talk about
seasons.
libido, right? We talk about libido being a side effect, low libido being a side effect of birth control. The same reason why the energy and libido are the same estrogen. The estrogen is responsible for our energy, for our libido, for all those things. So if we're not ovulating and we don't have our real estrogen working, then we might not experience it the same way. But again, just like there's ways to work on our libido, there's ways to work on
I
our,
feel like this piece was
yeah,
what everyone needed to hear. Your estrogen is your libido.
yeah,
And when you are on a hormonal pill that is affecting your estrogen production, the first thing that's going to suffer is your libido. And they don't talk about this enough, right? And women start thinking that they're crazy for not having any sort of sex drive or libido, and it's just like, nope, that's actually. And I loved the book "This Is Your Brain on Birth Control" by Sarah Hill.
yeah.
So she made a comment in that book that really stayed with me, and it said they're not side effects. Like, if this is what the pill does, it's not a side effect. It's what the pill does. She says they kind of like diminish it by calling it a side effect. She says, what does the word side effect mean in Western medicine? It just means it's an effect that is alongside what we also wanted it to do. So what we wanted it to do was prevent you from getting pregnant.
So
That's the
estrogen helps us
effect.
get pregnant.
Right. So she says that is the effect that we wanted the pill to have.
Hmm.
Side effects are other effects that we didn't necessarily want them to have. But she says they're just the same effect. They're the same effective. She says is the biggest misnomer to call them side effects because they are not side effects. We make it sound like, oh, it's just like this thing. No, it's the same thing. It's the exact thing that the pill was meant to do: decrease your estrogen. Yeah. All right. Let's talk again. Someone else asked me in a direct message: would Pessy recommend her course for single women?
Um, I think so. It depends on their level of comfort. We do go into sexual topics. But we don't talk about, I mean, it's very briefly because it's not the main focus, but I do like to bring it in because some women who come to this knowledge don't have the full, especially as a college teacher, I took that liberty because if we're learning about our bodies and our anatomy, like we should know all of it. So it depends on your comfort level with that.
Yeah. All right. Here, I'm a nursing mom, and every time I begin nursing, when my milk comes in, I get this crazy surge of exhaustion, and I feel like an emotional roll going on. And as the nursing goes in, it fades away. Can you explain what it is?
So nursing is its own cycle.
Okay.
There are literally cycles within cycles. There's the bigger cycle of pregnancy, birth, postpartum. There's the smaller cycles of every nursing window, where every time the baby suckles and there's a hormonal message going up to the brain to say, we're not ovulating now because we have a baby to take care of. So there is a hormonal response, just like there's a hormonal mechanism with our cycle, there's a hormonal feedback from the nursing. So it's a very quick cycle, right? Like if you feed your baby every 2, 3 hours, like that's a short cycle, but there's still something happening there. So
Yeah, when I'm thinking about when I'm reading this question, it's something that I experienced called DMER, dysphoric milk expression or reflex, which was when I was nursing, when I tried nursing my first, I had, she's saying exhaustion and an emotional role. For me, I had almost like a suicidal ideation like happen in a very like this window that I was crazy depressed. Like every time my milk came in, I hit like a crazy depressive state. Nobody knew what I was talking about. Everyone kept saying, no, you're just fine. It's just baby blues. It got so bad that I just could not continue nursing, and I did not nurse any of my other kids. In 2017, the research started coming out about something called dysphoric milk expression, I think, reflex, DMER. You can look it up. And it's not, what happens is when you nurse, when the milk comes in, oxytocin goes up, but dopamine goes down, right? Dopamine goes down, but oxytocin rises very quickly. So there's a short gap where there's very little dopamine, but the oxytocin is about to rise. And for some people, that gap is not short. For some people, that gap is longer. For most people with DMER, it alleviates within 90 seconds. Like as the baby keeps suckling, within 90 seconds, that thing passes. For some people, it doesn't pass in 90 seconds. I don't know who sent in this question, but you should Google DMER. It's a real thing. I did my thesis on postpartum depression when I was in college, and I stumbled upon this research, and I was so happy that I did, because in 2007, when I had my first kid, they told me I was hallucinating and it wasn't a thing. And then I found out that the research only started coming up in 2017. So I'm really glad that the research now backs me up. And by the way, the research only backs me up because enough women stood up for themselves, because women said, no, this is actually a real thing. This is what my body is, experiencing. And I cringe to think of how many women were like me, told, no, this is not a thing. And I'm so glad that there were enough women that started insisting that their voices needed to be heard. So this is just a message to everybody out there. Trust your body, trust your body, trust your body. Your body has a voice and it wants to be heard, and you are your own biggest advocate.
and it also takes almost 20 years for research to actually reflect an actual practice.
Yeah, I can validate that. I had cancer in 2003, when I was 16. They put me on an experimental study, and they then locked the result. The experimental study was there to see if they could get away with giving people with the kind of cancer that I had less chemo over time. Then they locked the study for 20 years. They went back to the old regimen. And only now, I'm 36 now, so it's exactly 20 years. They're opening up the results of the study this year. I'm not involved, but for 20 years, they still kept giving kids the old regimen of chemo, even though mine was much shorter. And only now, after 20 years where they're studying our results, are they going to announce their findings. So yeah, everything that you're reading published is about 20 years, yeah, after the fact. All right, someone asks, do you take your temperature when you're cycle tracking? Do you take your temperature during your period as well?
So it's good to have the habit every day, like just as a habit, something that you do. But you don't like, it's fine to take it after the period as well. If you just want to like minimize the time that you temp, there are shortcuts. Yeah.
I have two questions coming in like at the same time, and I think they're related. One of them is asking, is there a specific thermometer that you recommend? And somebody else is saying, I took a course last year and I'm postpartum and I still cannot get myself to track. I can't get myself to take my temperature or observe cervical fluid. What is wrong with me? And I really need to check, right? Because I need to get myself to put in a diaphragm and it's holding me back, right? And I feel like, talk to us about like thermometers, getting into the habit. I mean, I myself use a temp drop because I cannot do this thing where I stick a
Yeah,
thermometer in
that's
my
a
mouth.
good.
So tell us about it.
So first of all, to address that last question, like really just honor where you're at. Like you don't have to force anything that's just not going. If there's like this real desire in you and there's like you see something is holding you back, but you really want to do it, like, look into that, see what's holding you back. But you don't have to feel this pressure, like I have to do this. Like I said, this is really, it's nice for if everyone would do it, but I don't think like everyone would do it, and it's not really practical for everyone. Everyone's gonna have their motivation of what works for them in their lifestyle and what their priorities are. Everyone has different priorities. So if this is like really important for someone and they want to do it, great. If that's not you, like don't beat yourself up about it.
Right? I know for people who are postpartum and they're like, I can't do this, maybe this is not your method.
Yeah.
Maybe this is not your method. There is nothing wrong if you choose to go on hormonal birth control or the IUD. It is a lot more important that you feel confident. And I think that's what you keep trying to say throughout our time together is that your deep passion is giving women back their confidence.
Yeah.
And if you're not confident with the fertility awareness method and you're not ready for by accident having another baby, then this is not your method yet. Yet. You can always go back on hormonal birth control or, I think people are also they're what's the word? They're idolizing. I don't know. They're putting this idea of using FAM or the diaphragm on a pedestal, and it's not for everybody. It really isn't. There's something to be said. If there's other things that work better for you right now, go for your comfort
Yeah,
level.
I feel like everyone should have the experience that I had when I started this. This was not like a hack that everyone was into. It was just like something that I discovered, and I felt like, okay, maybe it wasn't even my first thing. It was first I just wanted to be in touch with my body more, and then I wanted to go over the birth control. So I looked into my options, and I was first doing the diaphragm alone before it was a thing to use diaphragms, and then I was like, you know what? I know about FAM because it's like similar topics that you come across it when you look into cycle awareness, and I knew about it a little bit, and I'm like, if I don't have to use diaphragm all the time, why not give myself a little break? And that's how I got into it. You can,
Right.
yeah,
And I put in an IUD for a very short period of time. I had thought I was gonna, use the IUD longer. My body rejected it, but I put it in and I used those months as a reprieve, as an opportunity, and I knew that it wasn't necessarily something I was gonna do long term. But
yeah,
you can use any avenue at your disposal, anything that's up that you have open to you. Nothing has to be a long term decision.
this is also, by the way,
Um,
something I offer. I didn't mention it because not it was one of the main things, but I offer a birth control consult. Like if you want to just do a one mini session or a full session, whatever you need, to go over your options and see what makes sense in your lifestyle. And guess what? I've had sessions with people and we've come to the conclusion that copper IUD is best for them. And I was wholeheartedly like, yes, this is, I mean, again, I don't tell people what to do. I just share what like comes up in the session and what came up for her. And this was what was fitting best for her, where she was at in her life. And yeah, she wanted to do FAM down the line, and this was perfect. Like, do the IUD, and then you'll get into it when you're ready. And you can always do it on the carb IUD first as well. So I don't
right.
like go and like people think like, oh, I'm telling everyone to do FAM. No, I literally do these birth control consults, and we can just go what's specific to you. So it's not, yeah, I'm not
I
like,
love that also a birth control consult is something that's such a great idea. You go to your OB and they just kind of list like what's available to you and they tell you what pill they've seen a lot of success on, but who's really listening to you, your emotional needs, your mental needs, your body and how it really works. And everybody's body is different. I think that's also something that we need to consider, that just because something is stylish right now, right? The natural holistic thing, not everybody's body belongs doing that. And there are plenty of bodies that are just fine on the pill or just fine on the IUD. And Miriam Goldie, our midwife, was telling me the other day, she's like, I had a woman come in, tell me that she wants to take out the IUD. And I asked her, what symptoms are you having? She's like, none. But I heard on a hotline that it's really bad for you. And she's like, yeah, but is it bad for you? Like, have you had symptoms? And she's like, no, but I heard that it's really bad. And I think that this is everything that you teach. But what is your body saying
yeah.
and what does your body needs?
I think that really sums it up. Like that's what I'm here for. Like help you figure out what's good for you. Like don't listen to what, the whole world is saying for sure.
Yeah. All right. I think this is a great place to end. There are still some more questions coming in, but I want to honor the time that we have together. And I'm just going to reiterate, we will put Pessy's information down in the show notes. So whether you're watching this on Kajabi or you're watching this on YouTube, we will make sure that you get all of the information. Definitely get on Pessy's mailing list because Pessy and I schmooze a lot. And even though right now she only has the one offering happening in a couple of days, and then she's going to have the May offering, and then she has her one-on-one offerings, Pessy is so motivated and so excited. She's always telling me the next thing that she's going to produce. And I mean, you can hear just from everything that she's saying, this is unlimited. Your cycle is an unlimited resource. And if there's anybody in our community who's going to make it an accessible, unlimited resource for the women, Pessy is it. So you definitely want to get on her mailing list and be notified with what she has coming next. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you so much, Pessy. Look out for the recording coming soon. Have a great night, everybody.